All right. No, I'm curious, does anybody, everybody know who they are and what they do? Is there anybody that doesn't know what they do? Tell us.
Tell us, because
Yeah, it's gonna be really hard to hear out there. So Louisiana Bayou Society, we're a nonprofit that specializes in taking litter out of the water. We believe the mission is a lot bigger than that. We concentrate heavily in the Atchafalaya Basin. We believe that the Atchafalaya Basin is part of the reason that the Canadian people are even in this area. We believe very heavily in trying to preserve it. One of the ways that we do that is by bringing people out there onto the water and experience it. And while they're out there, we collect litter as much as we can, usually what we can handle. So that's a quick overview of kind of what we do. The society formed back in 2023 without either of us really even knowing it. We'd ride our motorcycles around the state. We would stop under bridges. It was during COVID, so we were trying to stay separate from everybody. We want to take breaks from the motorcycles. Usually we're on back roads. Stop by a bridge, check out the body of water. We were just taken aback by how much trash there was everywhere that we stopped.
Yeah.
So we discussed it right there at that time. Alex mentioned, it'd be really cool if we could start videoing this, do cleanup efforts, see if we get people involved. I was living mobily at the time. I had a motorhome traveling around the country. I wasn't in Louisiana full time. Alex had a full time job working with the Jesuits, cooking at a college, cooking for a bunch of priests. So he was very, very busy. Flash forward to 2024, the end of 24.
Into 24 when you came back.
Yeah, I was working with a nonprofit out of Florida that helps children that have aged out of the foster care industry. And I was up in Portland, Oregon, trying to raise some money for them up there. I was on my way back to Tampa Bay when those two hurricanes hit. And I ended up just stuck in Butte La Rose, which, if any of you know where Butte La Rose is, that's between the levees and the Atchafalaya Basin. It's a very unique community amongst the state eight communities. It's definitely got its own vibe. I immediately fell in love with the place. I remember it from when we were kids. I don't know if you remember Mama taking us there. But my grandmother, I remember her taking me there as a child. So I've always had like a connection to it. And Alex's brother for years has been doing Easters out there. We go out there every Easter. Did I do that? Did what?
Yeah.
Oh, that was me. Projects. I'm just gonna start pressing buttons. So we both kind of have a connection to the community. I was there. I decided that I was going to stay in Louisiana, be a little bit closer to the family. And I rented a little place at the end of a set of canals in Butte La Rose. Basically, that's a little at the end of this area. It's where all the trash we collect. So we immediately started looking for groups to volunteer. Like, who can we get together with to do this? Who's cleaning litter out of the water? The answer is very few people. And we learned we learned why as we went along and tried to create this organization. There are a lot of hoops, a lot of hurdles that we had to jump through just to get to the point that we're at now. And it's really starting to kind of expand and blow up as far as that goes. But we're still learning those lessons every day. How to safely put people out in the water, how many people we can take out there, what the size of an event we can actually manage is. We have to be uber conscious about keeping people very safe out there on the water. And it presents its own litany of risks.
it's like legal problems, like
There's definitely some legal concerns. We have people sign waivers and this and that, but we also feel like a moral responsibility to the people that we bring out there on the water. Like, we want to make sure that they have the resources to be safe. We try to make sure that we have first aid kits, that everybody has a life jacket. There are laws in Louisiana above a certain age, you don't have to wear it. we do recommend that our volunteers wear life jackets when they're in the vessels.
Sure.
So just things like that. Insurance is proven to be insurmountable at the moment. So that's something that as our organization grows and we start to get members, so we are a member-based organization, but it's taken us at this point, we're 2 weeks over a year into actually collecting litter out of the water. So that's how long we've been doing it. In that time on our own, we're over 10 tons of litter removed out of the water.
Yeah.
So, and then there's larger capacity than that, because while we do work on our own and do all of that on our own, we also have now taken on responsibilities with a company called Osprey Initiative. They run professional litter booms and professional recycling operations in this state all around the US. There's a bunch of litter booms here in Lafayette. Alex was in the water all day long, hard to tell, but he was in a canoe all day long, pulling just the nastiest stuff in the world out of the water. I was on the bank cataloging everything. You know, there's processes where we figure out how long that litter's been in the water, where it's coming from, and how to attack that on a more fundamental basis. So a lot of people will ask, like, how does that tie back into the basin? You know, what is the litter issue in the basin and how does that affect the basin? So the litter issue in the basin is vast and it has been generation. So the communities that lived out there for many years did not have services. So anything that was produced as litter or trash at that time was usually just buried in the ground. If you know anything about the basin, as much as it's filling in, it's also disappearing in places. There's erosion, there's sedimentation. Those things come to the surface. They stop things from rooting. We get to bank lines where the bank is made of glass. There is nothing else that can grow because there's nothing that can root. It can't get through the bottles. Or it's growing out of the bottle, which is another thing that we see very, very often.
Yeah, tires as well. Entire bank lines just made of tires that were either put there intentionally at some point, or like down like you're saying, just a lack of regulation. Not only for the Atchafalaya Basin and for the Bayou Rose, which is where we've mainly done our work, at least with just the two of us, but all over the state. You know, all the bayous in the state basically were dumping grounds for everybody's trash
So I have a question.
for generations.
So like, we've been all over. So is Louisiana worse or is it like this everywhere where people that live in a, you know, kind of in a community out of the city, just throw everything out?
Yeah, rural area.
I've seen places that are equally as dirty, but they're not as beautiful. That's what gets me,
Yeah.
is what we have here is better. It just is. I don't know what
Well,
to say about it.
But if you haven't been anywhere else, you don't know it's.
That's
bad.
the
You don't know it's beautiful.
appreciate, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, we interviewed a guy a couple of days ago, Scott LeGrange, who's the one of the owners at Cypress Cove. Um, you know, and he said it very well, like, people come here to experience us and our culture. And our culture came from that basin. You know, without that basin, without those waters, when our people got here, the Spanish didn't want us any more than anybody else did. You know, everybody's like, oh, the Spanish welcomed us in. What they did is they put us somewhere that nobody else could live. The only people out there were natives. You know, and fortunately, the Cajuns have just spent 150 years kind of intermingling with the Micmac in Canada. So plenty of native heritage in the Cajun people. We were able to kind of fit in. We were able to go out there to the swamp. It protected us, it protected our language. It gave us food, it gave us the trees to build our houses. It literally rooted the Acadian culture in Louisiana. And that's, you know, that's the thing that people come here for. People think of Louisiana, they think of New Orleans, they think of Cajuns, they think of Cajun food. You know, the next thing that we need them to be thinking about is the Atchafalaya. Like, that needs to be on that list. I think it's a more important place than New Orleans. I love New Orleans. I lived in New Orleans for years. Worked there, the city will always have my heart. But I'm living in the basement. I'm not living in New Orleans anymore. Neither is Alex. So let's talk a little bit about some of these pictures that we got on us here. See if I messed any of this up. All right. So the mission has been, I mean, we started out like pretty guerrilla, if you will. We got a pirogue, which was all about 11 feet long. Thank God it's deep because I was about 50 pounds heavier, I feel like at the time. Alex has lost a little bit of weight too, maybe. But we would park him in the front of the pirogue. I would go and slam him into a bunch of trees. And we would see what we could pull out of the canals right there behind the house, just to kind of start testing this out. What does it look like? Do we even want to do this?
Two of those pictures up there represent our first week. The first one and the second one, the top row from left to right, are our first day. Definitely the third one is from our first week. I recognize the beginning of the process, with me just being in the P road, fishing things out of the water one bottle at a time, as we just began. I guess we could say refining. I don't even know. We started the process. Like, where did we begin?
Yeah.
Just starting to understand, how do we do this? Where do we start? Well, we just got to start picking up trash. We got to take befores. We got to take afters. We got to see, how this stuff looks. See if, we can actually get it clean. We addressed a lot of legacy litter, the 10 tons Dominic is referring to. When we say legacy, we mean litter that's old. So there's a lot of the processes that we're able to take part in with this new company that we're working with right now give us data points. And the data points, like you was tell the story about where the litter comes from. How does it do that? Well, we clean the same waterways. Then a rain event happens and we go back and we clean those same waterways again. And once you know the flow of the water and we know where our devices are placed and all those different things like that, it tells a story. So like here with us in the beginning, we picked up bottles from the 60s, from the 70s, first and second generation Fresca bottles and Tab and Fanta and all sorts of things that were, companies that were created in 1966. We got like the first and second bottles ever made. Those are cool. But a lot of it's legacy litter. Like a lot of the weight that we did, it's just stuff that's been there, and a lot of it's just fisherman stuff, tackle boxes, entire, just the whole getup that that just was left out there for whatever reason. But yeah, these processes got refined as we started, but as you can see, it's very primitive. We began with buckets, fishing nets,
Puppies.
1 or 2 boats.
Yeah, you kind of see the process as it moves along here. So as we would get to like confluence of points, you can see there's giant things coming out of the water. We're starting to pull giant tires and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This boat down here is just full of tires. Tires are a genuine problem.
Yeah.
So we talked to the DEQ here. They basically advise us, hey, we recycle every tire, that is bought in the state of Louisiana. So if somebody buys a tire at a tire shop, that tire gets taken off and recycled, right? That's great. But we have interstates. We have bridges. We got people who get blowouts.
Yeah.
We've got generations of people who use tires to build up their banks.
Yeah.
With the thought process was, hey, this is going to stabilize the soil. When what it actually does is grab it and pull it. It pulls it further and further and further down. Your water gets shallower and shallower. So these are not solutions to our problems. And we go to the people to this day, and their entire yard will be made out of these. And we'll explain to them like, hey, we can help with this. There are better ways to do it. We'll even help you take your tires away. It's a battle that we have yet to win. So getting people to understand there's better ways to do it. There are less intrusive, less even expensive ways to do it. Because I don't know where these people get all of these tires from.
What do you do with the tires?
Yeah.
Well, they cost us money too. So the longer
It costs you money to
dispose
keep
of
them.
There's a disposal fee, right?
The disposal fee.
there's disposal
Even though
fees, there's gas.
You pay a fee when you buy a tire for disposal, but then there's another fee
Yeah.
when you,
The racket.
That's correct. You can bring 5 tires at a time, a few different places in the state, and they'll let you recycle those 5 for free. You can do
Yeah.
that every day. But if you wanna recycle more than 5, you're gonna pay
Yeah.
in bulk. You can only bring 20. It's illegal to carry more than 20 tires on a vehicle or on a trailer.
Really?
So the police can pull you over for that. If you have too many tires at your location, you're supposed to get a license.
Okay,
Like they wanted us to get us a tire producer license, like we're a tire shop, and we're producing tires out of the Bayou,
yeah,
which we thought was cool.
Yeah.
And then they wanted us to get a license to house those tires, which means we need like a building or like some kind of storage unit or,
Right.
you know, like an 18-wheeler to store the tires in.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where, at this point, we are having to collect fewer and fewer tires just so we can manage to do the 5 a day.
well, yeah,
And all it costs us is fuel and time rather than even more money. So that's kind of where we're at with the tires at the moment. They are a gigantic problem. The estimate from the basin is somewhere between 3 and 500,000 tires. So that's generational. Like if we start now and we put a ton of volunteers out there doing nothing but pulling out tires.
Yeah.
This is going to last to our
years,
before they get all.
Lots of people.
I read years ago, and I don't know if they put a stop to it, but, and maybe it wasn't in Louisiana. Some people were strapping tires together and throwing them in the Gulf to help form, reefs.
And now they're spending millions and millions of dollars.
Removing
to
them.
check them.
Okay, well, that's what I assumed, but
Yeah,
I hadn't heard that, the result.
so I mean,
Yeah,
you know, we live, we learn. I don't know what the overall answer is to tires. There seemed to be a lot of success with the rubber mats and things like that.
yeah,
There needs to be better facilities for recycling tires, period. Not entirely sure how that business works, but
yeah,
like we subsidize it with the government. And then we pay for it too. And then they sell the product that they're like, so. It seems like a really good business, and I don't understand why there are more people doing it.
yeah,
Because they're making money every way there is to make money. And there's an obvious tire problem.
Yeah.
They we recovered one today.
Yeah.
It looked perfect. We sold the truck yesterday. It was better than any of the tires that were on that truck. So not even joking. But those things, like those tires, they don't go away. They get caught in the trees. You know, they stop things from rooting. They dig holes out in the banks. You know, those as boats wash over those tires, that
Yeah.
in the middle just washes all of that liquid away.
Mm.
All of our animals are looking for places to shelter. Every tire we pick up has a frog or
Crawfish.
a crawfish in it. These are the things that we consume from the basin. Don't know about you guys, but I don't want to be able to tell the difference between a Wrangler and a Goodyear crawfish.
yeah,
It doesn't sound appealing to me. You know, these. It's more than about just food, right? I mean, this goes back again to the culture, and to who we are as a people. So getting everybody on board to understand that, and just coming out there to experience the basin is hugely important. We hold events often, you know, where it's come out and let's just have a good time today. Let's go out there, enjoy yourself, bring this picker, bring this bucket. If you see anything, pick it up. The unfortunate reality is that we then have to follow all of those boats around because they don't stop seeing things. So as much as we want them to just go out there and love the nature and have a great day and pick up whatever you see, don't stop seeing things. So as we move through that process, we're seeing a palpable change in our area where we've been able to have our impact. So starting in my backyard, heading all the way into the Henderson Swamp, places like Cypress Cove, places like Turtles on the Levee. These places are noticing differences for their clientele. Cypress Cove brings houseboats out there, puts people out there on the water all the time. You know, they're noticing one, it's cleaner, but two, they're doing a better job of cleaning up after their houseboats. They're putting their houseboats out there because they want to be
Yeah.
part of it.
Sure.
You know, Turtles hosted a great event a couple of weeks ago where we sent a bunch of people out on the levee collectively. Um, they have those airboats that are going out on tours all the time. All of the airboat drivers have thanked us, like, hey, we're seeing less. We appreciate it.
They see a difference.
The question is, how do we cut it down more? And the reality is, in our area, and for a large swath of the base, one of the major contributors is I-10. That bridge that goes across, there are unsecured loads in people's vehicles, or they just roll down the window and toss stuff
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
You know, those are the unfortunate realities, and we find a bit of both. And the area, the bridges are not maintained enough. There are bits and pieces of car and plastic and rubber and tire and fender and whatever have you, all along the sides of it. Every time it rains, it goes into those gutters and it washes right down into the basin. Those things are poisoning our fish. They're settling on the bottom. They're not going away. You know, we've got sedimentation issues, and these are contributing to them in fundamental ways because they're non-degradables. They're under the water trapping things, stopping them from moving when we've already got issues with things being trapped and not moving. So, you know, we believe fundamentally that our mission ties in, you know, with organizations like Base and Keep. Because it's bigger than just picking up the trash. Like it has an effect down the line. And again, just the effect of getting the people out there to experience that Atchafalaya Basin is something that is, for some people, life changing. I especially hear those stories from the Boy Scouts. Like one of my favorite things, Ben Pierce.
Yeah.
The president, ABK, or of VSA,
Big E's, yeah.
Yeah.
say.
Boy Scouts of America, kind of locally. He was mentioning that, you know, he tells those kids when they come down here, they come from all over the United States. I think they've had every state but one or two.
I think
like
one
40
left.
There's one left. There you go. You know, these waters that come here, this watershed. Can you pull up that picture that you had the other day?
33 different states and
33
their
different
watersheds all drain into the tributaries that come down into the Atchafalaya Basin. And the last place it makes it out of there is Morgan City is the last place in the basin before entering into the Gulf. And we're catching, catching trash that could be mitigated in some cases states north of it.
Yeah. And it is a fact that if you don't believe things like will move that much over time, we've seen, you know, we've seen a tire floating in one bayou, and then floating in another bayou, and then floating in another bayou, and then suddenly it comes to us. It's like they follow us.
And then Ben talks about, having that conversation with these guys when they get there and they take these canoe trips. They'll be like, look, every third paddle could definitely be from the Ohio River. Or it could be from, let's look at these different rivers that drain into the Mississippi and come down here. So, like, how many different waters are in here? So, like, let's think about that. On day one, he asks everybody to grab a blank sheet of paper and write down one word that describes whatever it is you have in your mind right now, but what represents the Atchafalaya Basin or the Louisiana swamp. And it'll be an overwhelmingly negative list of words. Creepy, dark, gross, stinky, whatever the case may be. Mosquitoes, alligators, swamp, scary, or and then he'll have this experience with them where they get to go out and be part of it and integrate themselves into it for days and weeks at a time and go camp out there and be part of the weather and be part of the whole deal. And then they do the same thing on the way out. Grab that sheet of paper and write down one word about what you think about this place now that you've experienced it and the difference between what you thought you knew about it and what it is. Beautiful, majestic, surreal, unbelievable. right? So like the difference in the perception of these children and the story they get to go back home with, now you can understand why don't you take an interest in a water mitigation process in the state where you're from because you know that it's going to end up in this not nasty, disgusting, creepy, gross place, but this beautiful, and that's kind of a cool nose to tail type story right there with what it does because I even this last year and 3 months in the Atchafalaya with Dominic has given me a new perspective on it, and I'm from here. I just haven't been that intimate with it the way that we are, out there now.
Well, here's some fun pictures. So Bayou Society, I don't know, it was almost probably 8 or 9 months ago. We uh did our first kind of fundraiser. We got the community to help us buy a set of canoes, which we then were able to use to put volunteers out in the water over and over again. You can see one of the canoes up there. They don't actually say Louisiana Bayou Society on it yet, but that is the plan that is future. That little pontoon boat right there is one of the most useful vessels you'll ever see in your life. We fill that thing until all of the tunes are under the water. We've had all kinds of things piled on it. We recovered a tire one day. I think it's what did it say? Jet cargo, jumbo, super
Jumbo jet cargo, something like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
biggest tire I ever seen. It looked like a drag radial that came off an 18 wheel. But you can see some of the old bottles that we collect. We've been working with Parish Proud since close to the beginning. They reached out to us, which has been a great partnership. They provide us with things like bags, which has saved us a ton of money because we go through a lot of bags. You can see Alex loading tires onto the pontoon boat there. We've got some specialty things that come out to help us occasionally, including that little eight-wheeled semi-aquatic machine there. You can see us pulling a swimming pool out of the swamp. Definitely doesn't belong there. These bottles were all dug out of the tanks in Butte La Rose. They're all vintage bottles that we ended up painting and working with Atelier de la Nature. It's a kind of an art collective, a STEAM education center based out of Cecilia, Louisiana. Some great people over there. We built two different bottle trees, 120 bottles in total. It was a really, really cool project to be involved in. It was really neat to get to repurpose some of these things. We've actually developed kind of an interest and a passion for the bottles, which I don't think is something that either of us had before in any capacity.
Not to mention LPB and PBS showing up to film us and call us artists.
Yeah,
What kind of artist are you?
yeah.
Good.
I think that was actually Al Mayberry. I think that's what kind of artist are you? It's a great question. So here you can see some volunteers out on the water. These are our two like main workforces when we first started. Our Piro and what we call the Pope boat. Call it the Pope boat because it's got a little hat like the Pope. Here's the process. Literally digging tires out of the tanks. These tires are so rooted in that it's going to require more tools than we have. So we're in the process of doing just that, building more boats. We're to the point where we're no longer able to just acquire vessels. We're actually building specialty vessels with winches and davits and things like that to help us pull tires, pull things up out of the water. We would like to be able to go after some like federal funding to see if we get some of these houseboats pulled up out of the Atchafalaya. There's houseboats all over the place and they're sinking. Be really nice to see if we get some of these things out of the water. Some help in doing so. So we're in the process of building a big barge to help us to do that. These are volunteers that we get out on the water. You can see people out in the canoes. That's a fake alligator. But it scared me. Boy, did it scare me. We were walking through the woods, and Alex said, "Oh, watch out for that alligator." That's all he says. I jumped 10 feet. I turned around and said, "You could have told me it was plastic."
He does take good photos.
Yeah,
Give real close to it, it looks like a big game.
it's a very photogenic fake alligator. That's facts. here again, you can see kind of some of the process as we were going along. You know, we would refine, we would learn, you know, we ended up getting 7-gallon buckets. We've since moved on to like crabbing equipment. So like, I don't know if y'all know what a champagne is, but it's like a big bucket that has another bucket that goes inside of it that you kind of put things in.
It's the bucket every one of y'all shook whenever y'all had a crab boil at y'all's family's house.
Yeah,
There-
yeah, yeah.
and they-
That's what it is. So, and as we move to things like that, like we learn certain things. Like when you fill one of those, the top, it's 2.5 cubic feet. So that helps us to wrap our head around some of the measurements. Sometimes weight doesn't tell the story. If I pull 2.5 cubic feet of litter out of somewhere, that's a noticeable, palpable difference. That could be 2.5 feet of styrofoam that weighs 5 pounds. Or that could be 2.5 feet of textiles that weigh 35. So there's a lot of difference in those things and understanding kind of how they ended up there in the first place. Textiles, for example, a lot of the time we'll find that, you know, where there may be homeless encampments or things like that. Or around like gyms or like
Sports complexes.
sport complexes in general, you know. Just places where people might lose a bag or a shirt for some reason, leave it on a fence and it blows off, or balls, all of the balls in the world. That's for sure. So just kind of zooming along here, we can see that, you know, as we've moved along, we've done several different things to kind of improve our processes and improve our equipment. We did buy a truck, which we sold yesterday, unfortunately. I had a transmission issue, so we had to let that go. But you can see we put a different motor on our boat, which has been a boon. It's helped us out a lot in not only operating efficiency, and keeping costs down, but it is also better for the environment. It is a 4-stroke. We're running 2 strokes before. It's just all a process of learning, you know, how to lessen our impact, um, and kind of make sure that we're doing all of this in a very thoughtful manner. We've got some great partnerships. This bottom picture over here is the Louisiana Department of Wetland Scientists from LSU. They come out and volunteer with us on almost a monthly basis. Sometimes it'll be 5 or 6, sometimes it'll be 10 or 12. They'll fill up all of our canoes and, you know, we'll follow them around in the pontoon boat, pick up their trash as they're going out. They are phenomenal workers. One of our usual rules is please don't try to pick up anything with teeth. They ignore that rule and chase down every snake that they see. They pick it up and they all gather around and you have a little class right there. What kind of snake is this?
Yeah.
It terrifies me every time. Oh, good. I think there we are. That's kind of the end of what we've got here. You can see another fella here in one of these pictures hanging off the front of the boat. Osprey is starting to really support us in a number of ways. Not only have they given us like processes to understand, and kind of things to help us develop our, you know, our approach, but they've also sent people to us to help volunteer. When we have volunteer events, they'll send Osprey employees, pay those employees to come out and help us with those events so that they can better understand the litter issues in those areas. They want to become a player in the basin as well. We would like to see some kind of master plan developed for how to address the litter concerns under the bridge in particular. You know, it's one small part, but it is a part that if we can start to wrap our heads around, that we feel like could have a giant impact down the line in the future. Alex, you have anything to add?
Recently, we hooked up with a doctor out of Catahoula who arranged a neighborhood cleanup, which is kind of Dominic's idea from the beginning of this thing, right? We would like to get local stakeholders and local, you know, basically anyone who's interested in organizing a cleanup, and then we can be logistical support for that cleanup. So grab a bunch of volunteers, get your community together, get your neighbors, your aunt and them, whatever the case may be. We all show up, we bring boats, we get a head count. We throw some of these things on Facebook and we advertise it. We try to get as much people and interest built up as we can. And we did one of a couple of those pictures right there. One of them was of Jude's aunt, I do believe. But Dr. Jude did an event that he organized, and we were able to go out there and get a pretty significant amount of stuff that day. We look forward to doing more things like that. Like Dominic said, he and I have been out there. We've been donors and volunteers with this process since the beginning of it, and we still are. We spent a lot of our own money getting the initial equipment started and just getting the process started. And so as we move downstream, we look forward definitely to increasing the amount of activity with regard to these volunteer cleanups and getting more and more of that participation from as many people as we can. We recently got a photojournalist that we kind of brought on, and his assistants and the people that he knows and just the things he already does in Lafayette with media has brought a whole bunch of eyeballs to us. We have 25,000 followers on our Facebook page. 4 months ago, we had 3,000 followers on our Facebook page.
Wow.
Significant growth. What does it mean? Neither of us have any idea. It hasn't meant dollars by any means, but they're
Not
coming,
yet.
I imagine. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. Unfortunately, it takes money to do all these things. The boats require gasoline. The truck that we sold yesterday had an issue. We're gonna need to buy another. That's gonna require money. We blasted out a post this morning, try to get as much involvement in that from the community as we can so that we can continue. Again, we're very transparent. We're open books. Our Facebook page tells a story, but to come out there with us and see what it is and what it looks like and just the business address and seeing where the vessels are stored and how this thing is run and the whole deal, everything is very above board. We want to, it's a passion project at a minimum. Like, this is something that we enjoy doing. I get a lot of enjoyment out of the before and afters. I get a lot of enjoyment out of making something better than it was before. I get a lot of enjoyment out of the serendipity that we've seemed to experience since this process began. Meeting the right person at the right time, landing in the right place at the right time to have conversations that otherwise would not have ensued. Like, I can't count the number of things that have just happened that have made us just kind of scratch our heads. Um,
One of the first things that we ever did to really reach out to anybody was to the Basin Keepers. Like, we showed up to a Basin Keeper event. There was a lady talking about bears. It was, it was really cool. And then that led to us going and volunteering.
licking all those stamps and doing all those mail outs. Yeah, yeah.
And it was at the house that Alex grew up in.
Yeah.
So they own the house that Alex grew up in. So like this, there's been all of these things that have tied in. We have recently been asked to do more scouting missions to like take boats further and go further. And pretty much simultaneously as we were asked to do that, somebody donated us a boat that's perfect for doing
Yep.
that.
We needed it the next day.
We needed it the next day.
We for a news segment. Like, we
So-
had PBS and LPB coming out and they were doing this thing and like we were gonna use our boat to do the scouting, but like it didn't work for a couple of days because of an ignition issue. And then this doctor donates us this boat. And now we've got this boat. And not only, I mean, it's a perfect scouting boat. It's got 4 seats. People can sit down in it. Everybody's comfortable. It's got a bimini, can hide from the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes quick. It's reliable. We weren't expecting it. For sure.
We put it on the Atchafalaya River yesterday and traveled probably about 2 hours, just exploring the Atchafalaya. Like,
And the Whiskey Bay Pilot Channel. So if you haven't been on it in a boat, it's wider than you might think.
Yes.
it is a big ocean.
It's been.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how some of it is full and you can see the banks.
Yes,
It's,
so much. I mean,
it's scary.
yeah,
It's scary because the houses out there. Just to be mindful, we've got 10 more minutes to wrap up and make sure that we're, be mindful of people here that are working late. But I did want to bring about something. Y'all do this in your spare time?
Yeah, if you wanna call it space time, we create time to do this. We don't have spare time, unfortunately.
Well, I guess my point is that we all are dependent on salaries outside of
Yes,
what you're doing.
We receive zero monies for our efforts.
yeah,
Yes. I just wanted to bring a highlight and awareness to that as people are talking about, I mean, and more people are talking about doing this. They are not at this time able to produce income for them to be able to do this full time. And that's hard. That's very hard and it's hard work and dedication and just wanted to let y'all know that I do acknowledge that and I think, others should be able to be aware of what y'all are doing. At one point, it would be beautiful for y'all to be able to sustain yourselves that y'all could do this more than what you're doing and that is your goal.
We agree, yes, we.
it must be, yeah.
Yeah, so will be on the bayou and people will come out with, things in their hands and Gatorades and, just.
$100 bill is the cage.
Trying to hand us money, need something,
Yeah.
just because they see us out there and like you, they're acknowledging our presence. They're saying, hey, we appreciate you guys. Hey, y'all coming out of the rain. We're like, kind of already.
Yeah, people invite us in off the boat side of the rain, and like, we've been getting waiting on for 15 minutes at this point.
Yeah.
We're not gonna come into your
It's
house,
refreshing,
you know?
yeah.
We're just gonna destroy your house if we walk inside.
Yeah,
That's
y'all are really ground up, grassroots, starting out. And, from meeting y'all last year, I feel like y'all are working harder than you did last year. And so are not understood and how much work you're doing, what y'all were doing
Well,
last year, even doing more than that this year.
We are, and we're planning on doing bigger events. And with Osprey, we're now doing litter professionally. So like, today, for example, they were in the water here in Cooley Bean, a waterway that lets out directly onto Bayou Vermilion. Coincidentally, that waterway lets out across the street from the house of the gentleman that don't. He's an anesthesiologist, he follows a knockout. Sleep, I don't know what we would call him.
Yeah, we're gonna name the folks something cool.
Yeah. So all of our hosts have nicknames. But yeah, I mean, like, there's just, like Alex said, there's so much serendipity between all of these things. And going back to touch on another point he made, from the beginning, our point has been, we can't pick up all of the litter ourselves. We named ourselves very purposefully Louisiana Bayou Society and not,
Yeah.
the people of this Bayou Society.
Dominic and Alex.
Yeah, nothing like that. Like, we want to go and find local stakeholders, people who want to do this in their communities, make a difference in your community, and then we bring the resources to you to accomplish the task. Like, we help you organize the event. We bring the waivers. We bring extra boats. We bring grabbers. We bring bags. We take everything with us when we go. Because that's one of the biggest things. Everybody wants to go out there and collect litter. What do you do with it when you don't?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been one of the biggest problems in this whole process. We had to get a dumpster. Like, we rent a dumpster month, and again, we don't have members yet. We don't really have donors per se. Like, we've got people who occasionally like give us things.
Right.
We don't even understand, to be honest with you. We've always been volunteers and donors. So like, we are just keep doing all of this ourselves until we find somebody who can come onto the team that can teach us how to do it differently.
Yeah.
It's the reality of where we're at the moment. So, but we're into it. Like, I love this as much as any fisherman or hunter. Like, I'm out there and I'm hunting trash, fishing it out of the water, and I come back with a full boat every time, and I'm exploring. I'm not just sitting under a tree or like, getting. My memories as a child is getting ran into a tree and there either being a snake or a wasp nest in every one. Those are my memories as a child.
Or a fishing line with a hook on it.
Or a fishing one with I mean,
Something to snack.
if we're honest,
Yeah.
and it's one of the things that we would love to see change, and we're hoping to see on a fundamental change. A lot of what we see in the basin is from the fishermen. And it's generational again. They finished one of their bait sacks and think it goes away. Doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't degrade either. Goes and sits there on the bottom and collects stuff. Comes heavy. Traps with.
Are there fines if you see somebody?
There are ways to report it. I think Parish Brown had a good bit to do with that, setting up like there's a local number. I think it's like 311 or something like that, something like that. You'll see it on some of the signs around town. You'll see the don't litter signs and there'll be a number to call. That's the best way we know to go about it. The state has just put in a bunch more laws about littering in particular. So there's going to be larger fines and more ways to report that.
They might need some on the bridge.
The bridge needs a lot.
Needs to be more involved.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to see the bridge. Like there was a big push to have cameras,
Right.
and I don't understand why there aren't because
definitely.
there was a giant wreck again today.
Mm.
Like it shut it down for hours.
Mm.
We don't even have eyeballs on how this keeps happening over
Yeah.
and over again.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody's worried about like, privacy. Well, stop going 90 miles an hour on the bridge.
Right.
Don't know what else to say about it. Like
Things to do.
too many people
The
keep
rear, they're-
dying. They keep getting hurt. These 18-wheelers cannot stop. They come over these blind bridges and slam into everything in front of them.
Yep.
And then everything shuts down for 9 hours. This is an artery that is super important to our nation's economy.
It's
We've
a
got to
national
do
problem.
better.
It's on the Sunday Journal. 18-wheeler drivers that shouldn't be driving these roads.
Yeah.
So that's another problem. But we need to reach out to our representatives. Seems like we need to write letters and stuff like that. Individual people.
I mean, that's it. I mean, keep pushing that. I mean, we've been trying to support Keep Louisiana Beautiful a lot because they're supporting a bunch of different organizations that are all over the place. So we believe wholeheartedly, I think just like the Basin Keepers do, that this mission is bigger than all of us individually. It takes a family, we're all gonna need to hold hands, we're all gonna have our place. A rising tide raises all ships. And, we're trying to play our part in that and like figure out our niche and where that is, and we're developing that over time. And a large part of it at this point has been just going out there and taking things out of the water. And I think as it develops, it's gonna become like on an even larger scale. So we've got a 27-foot tri-tube that we're working on at the moment. Theoretically, if we get that thing built, we'll be serious contender for actually being able to do things like
derelict vessels and things that are, submerged dodges and like you saying sunken houseboats and things like that. And it's a pervasive issue. It's happening all the way up in Creek Cleanup Project up in Pennsylvania. They got bayous and bayous lined with tires and trash and crazy stuff. They're doing the same good work that we're doing, and it's just
Yeah.
that bad. So to answer your question from earlier, it's everywhere.
But we're getting their stuff also.
Right.
I mean, a lot of our fishermen, you're indicating in generational, but we're also getting from.
that's it. It comes in from everywhere. And I mean, we can go, like, I could take you to locks. I could take you to the locks of Crot Springs. And you can look down there and just see piles of trash that form in front of those locks.
Mhm.
When they open them,
Yeah.
flush it straight into the basement.
Yep.
And again, those things don't go away. They get caught on trees. They stop the water from flowing naturally. They cut off entire areas from even having the water being able to get back into them.
And there's different times of floodings and high waters. We've got camps that have been flooded out. So the trash from the floodings, throughout the years, there's been a lot of different reasons.
There's so
Tornadoes.
many camps that just got picked up and put into the
Yeah,
woods.
hurricanes.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then people are like, well, it's trash, so I'm gonna leave it there instead of actually going out and do it. I know that my family had different ways of dealing with their trash, but I tell you what, sometimes it's just going overboard.
Right.
Depending on what it was, I'm saying my grandfather's great grandfather, It was
You
just,
sit in
crazy.
the bottle and disappears, right? It's gone.
Yeah. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even wanna know what's in
Yeah.
front of the camp. I don't. You might cut your foot on something, we don't know. But yeah, a lot of it was burning, but some stuff didn't burn. So just like you said, it ended up being buried.
Yeah.
You know, what are they gonna do? They live out in the middle of the basin.
That's it.
You
There's
know,
no
they don't have a dump that they could go bring it to, you know, there was just different.
Garbage truck doesn't come every Tuesday.
You know,
That's the reality, like, that's the world that we live in, Saint Martin Parish still does not have a filter. So, yeah, so much trash in that water
Yeah.
from our local community, because they don't have any other place to.
Yeah.
And so you're doing Boy Scouts, what about 4-H clubs, different other
We wanna,
kids?
we wanna reach out to as many like concerned and interested parties as we can. So if there's anybody that wants to come and get in boats, we would be happy to show them the basin. That's the long and the short of it. I think that's a huge part of what we do, like, and you know, that's gonna branch out. That's gonna be missions in the Vermilion River, that's gonna be missions down the Etch, working with groups like the Tesh Project. You know, we wanna hold everybody's hands. You know, we don't really care if one group doesn't like another group, like we can all find something that we can work on together. And I feel like we're fortunate because litter is one of those things we can all work on together. Almost nobody's asked us to put anything back,
Not yet.
with the exception of one crazy Cajun dude who wanted back.
That's my garbage.
Was that a
That's how-
tank?
It was a sink. He said, "Did y'all?" He waves us down on the side of the bayou. He said, "Hey, so, yeah, y'all picked up that sink?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's my sink." I said, "That sink that's been in the bayou for like 40 years. That was your sink." He said, "Yeah, that was my sink."
Yes. We brought his sink back.
Yeah, we went
Drove it to his car.
pitched it out of the dumpster in Cecilia.
All right.
Oh, my God.
But that's the kind of yeah.
Stay for a conversation.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
That looks like cookies.